From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, I want to welcome you to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because as I say every week, we are the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on this powerful SuperTalk Mississippi radio network, or on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV. But some of you are watching on YouTube or Facebook or your favorite podcast. With that in mind, I want to give you the date. It's May the 1st, 2023. Turkey season's already over. Think about it for a minute. Man, this year is zooming by. I especially want to thank the Foundation, the title sponsor of SuperTalk Outdoors. The Foundation is focused on important issues about protecting Mississippi's outdoors heritage. We're so privileged to have them in this state. By the way, my views on this show, on my show, are mine. They're not those of the Foundation. But I always like to make sure you understand this. You can count on me to say what needs to be said when it comes to conservation issues in Mississippi. And I'm honored to be here. Listen, on my show on the coast, the Ricky Matthews Show, I share a lot of quotes, and I came across one from actress Olympia Dukakis. She died in April of 2021, a couple of years ago. But she said this along the way, and when I read this quote, I can't help but think about what some outdoorsmen have to go through. But let me read it to you, and then let's get we'll get your reaction. But here's what she said. Follow your heart, your instincts. People might try to dissuade you from your passion, but no one can live your life but you. You know, I think about all the people who enjoy the outdoors. Some of us are surrounded by people sometimes who don't understand or appreciate what that love of the outdoors is all about. And, at the end of the day, that's not us that's missing out. It's them that's missing out. And I think the thing we can do is introduce them to shows like this, to people like my next guest, and let us talk about our love. And maybe one day it will begin to carry over and convince them that they should also follow their passion, and that no one can live their life but them. Anyway, my next guest is my friend Ronnie Strickland, who was one of the first members of the Mossy Oak family, and he's been on the show many times. He's a good friend. And let me just start by saying good morning to you, or good afternoon to you, cuz. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Those words ring very clear. And when you said, hey, turkey season's already over, my shoulders slumped ahead a little bit. It's hard to believe.
This year is going by. Look, as you and I were chatting before the show started, it's been a more typical spring, but we haven't had typical springs recently, have we?
No, I was saying, it usually goes, I tell people all the time, we have two seasons in Mississippi, February and summer. It usually goes from like freezing cold to 85, 90. And this year, very gradual. I had deer hunting clothes on every day, it seemed like. And it's been pretty awesome. A little more rain than you would like, but I felt like, hey, this is kind of what it feels like up in the Midwest. So, hey, I got no problem with Mississippi weather because it's in Mississippi, and I'm a fan, and you are too.
My friend Chris Gurris, who is actually on the Foundation board, sent me a video, I think from New Mexico, actually. He was turkey hunting in New Mexico, and it was snowing.
Yeah.
So, we didn't quite have snow here in Mississippi, but boy, we had some cool mornings, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. I can remember the first week or two. One morning, it was in the mid to upper 20s, and I had Cranky and his older brother, and I was like, we stayed out there for an hour and a half, and Cranky's teeth were chattering and stuff. I'm like, this is crazy. We didn't hear any turkeys. I said, I don't want to hunt turkeys during deer season. And we ended up going home. But the good news about that is it seemed to have kept the snakes and the mosquitoes at bay, and I'm all about that.
Man, so am I. Hey, listen, I want to tell you what we did this weekend. The United States Air Force Thunderbirds were here in coastal Mississippi, flying out of Keesler. They have an air show, and they were here for the air show. And so my family and I got in the boat and went around to just in front of Beau Rivage. And we had the Thunderbirds performing over our heads. They performed. They had a practice on Friday, then they performed Saturday and Sunday. And buddy, when you go and watch something like that up close and personal, it is a great reminder of how powerful the United States military is and how dedicated the young men and women are who fight in our military for our freedoms. It is touching in so many different ways, but that's what we did this weekend. You know, is again a wonderful reminder of how lucky we are to be in America. You've had that experience more than once, haven't you?
Oh, I have it over and over again. You know, it's changed me. It's changed the way I look at things. Our first hunt every year is wounded vets down in Florida. I've been doing it for 14 or 15 years, and it's two different camps. Sometimes 8 people, sometimes 10. And we did one year before last, or 3 years ago, and out of the 10 hunters, 8 of them were in wheelchairs, combat vets, you know, injuries, and spending time with those people is humbling. And we don't try to, you know, be one of the boys. We just kind of wait on them and take them hunting and build a campfire and feed them. And you watch what some of those people go through on a daily basis, and you go, I hope I don't ever hear anybody complaining about it was too cold or my stand wasn't comfortable. I heard one guy was telling me, like, you know, something was going wrong, and I was listening, but I was thinking I just spent 10 days with 4 guys who didn't have any legs, and they never complained, and they just wanted to go turkey hunting. And yeah, it's humbling, and it reminds you we do live in the greatest country ever in the history of the world. And even though you may watch a little news and get disheartened, you got to think cooler minds will prevail. And I still have a lot of faith, especially in the really young generation. I think they've kind of had enough of the insane stuff that's going on. So yeah, it's humbling, and it's a good reminder that we should thank the vets, and every time we go do something, thank you. You know,
Yeah, boy, is that true? Listen, as you know, I spent a career in media, and so I have, and the latter part of my career in digital media, and so I understand how the Facebook algorithms work and how they feed news
wow,
into your news feeds and all of this. The reality is, though, that social media companies make money when they create division. Because when you have division, you have more engagement. When you have more engagement, they make more money. That's just the way it works. But the truth is, too often the polarizing ends of the political spectrum are deciding what the conversation should be in America. But the truth is that most of us are somewhere in the middle. Most of us haven't lost touch with the roots of what makes us a great country. And when you go on your Florida turkey hunt each year with those veterans, and I watched the countdown, incidentally, as you were counting down, getting ready to go there, and then as you shared your experiences from there. When you go there, it's a great reminder that when you're in the outdoors, you can put all political differences aside and just be with people who love the country, and that helps you keep your feet on the ground, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. It changes the way you think, and it, you know, some people get numb to the news and numb to bad news and numb to the clips, and you spend time in camp with those people, and you go, you know, this is very real. It was very real to them when you hear their stories, and it's like we are so blessed. You know, we should start every day on our knees thanking God we live where we do and have the opportunities that we do. And I know you don't take it for granted, and I certainly don't. But I'm grateful that my turkey season starts out like that every year and has for well over a decade.
Well, what's interesting is you and I were chatting before we started the conversation this morning. We were sort of looking back on the turkey season and the opportunity to be with people in the outdoors and watch them enjoy the outdoors. You had one guy, in fact, that you met along the way that had been turkey hunting for 10 years. Tell about that story real quick.
Well, I first met this guy. His name's Jesse Fish, and I was invited to speak at a fundraiser at a church in Florida, and it was a big fundraiser. And they do it every year, and it's for local charities, homeless shelter, stuff like that. It's pretty close to Tallahassee down there, but anyway, I did my thing. They raised $136,000 in one weekend. It was awesome. But anyway, he came. I did my talk, which lasted whatever 30 minutes, and he came up and he had his wife with him. I think his mom was there. He's got 2 kids, and he was telling me he loves turkey hunting. He said, "I've been going for, I think it was 9 years at the time." He said, "I hadn't got one yet," and I was kind of taken aback. Anyway, I was telling Lauren about who produces my podcast, and they got to texting back and forth. And she came in and said, "We need to do an alert. We need to bring some notoriety to this guy because he's just the greatest Christian family man ever. And the reason he didn't kill a turkey, he didn't get to go much."
Hey, let's do this. We're going to tell the rest of that story, the 10th year, this year, when we come back on the other side with my friend Ronnie Cuz Strickland from Mossy. We'll see you after this.
I said 3 Mississippi to this land called home. I'll breathe Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Just carry on. I'll carry on. Mississippi.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have my friend Ronnie Cuz Strickland from Mossy Oak. And when we went to break, we were talking about a man that he met when he was down in Florida. After he gave a speech, they chatted, and he had been hunting for turkey for 9 years and had not killed a turkey. And anyway, you can finish the story.
Yeah, Lauren said, "We need to take this on as a project." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, let's make some Facebook posts and Instagram or whatever with a hashtag root for Jesse." And so I put a couple of those out, and we would get him to come. He would check in with us on the podcast every week. That'd be how we opened up. "Jesse, what did you do this weekend?" And his stories were amazing. One got shot out from under him, still on the roofs, but he hunts on WMA land that's an hour and a half from his house. He only gets to go once or twice a month, which makes perfect sense. But anyway, during one of those posts, a guy reached out to me and said, "Hey, I live pretty close to him. I think I'd like to talk to him." And we hooked him up, and he got his first turkey, and the guy filmed it. And it was one of the most emotional things I ever saw. He sent me a picture of Jesse over his turkey. His turkey's laying there in that food plot, and he's on his hands and knees kneeling with his hands on that turkey with his eyes closed. It meant so much to him, and people really got into it. We counted one time, I had like 600 and something people offering to take him turkey hunting, which tells you, like Will Primo said, turkey hunting's a cult. And everybody was rooting for Jesse. It wasn't about, man, I've killed a big one. I had one with inch and ash, but I didn't care what he shot. Nobody else did. They were rooting for Jesse, and it made me just glow, with happiness. And people love good news. That's what they're listening for.
It is, because what's awesome about that is Lauren's instincts on that were dead on, weren't they?
Yes, sir. She's very insightful like that. To me, the greatest episode of television we ever did was with Tom Kelly, and it was called An Afternoon on the Handles. And there's a chapter in his book, and that title is him talking about he was burying one of his best friends, and he was a pallbearer, and it was called An Afternoon on the Handles. And I took him hunting close to where all this took place. The guy's name was Jim Hart Andrews. And we went, after we had our turkey hunt, we went and visited his grave, and I filmed it, wiping the leaves off and opening the old iron gate. And Lauren helped me edit that thing, and it is epic. And I can't go anywhere, turkey function, where some big old guy will come up to me and say, "Man, I cried my eyes out watching that." Some people feel that, and some people don't. And when she saw Jesse, she said, "This is about to be a project." I said, "Hey, I'm with you." She's the producer. I'm just the mouthpiece. So, yeah.
Hey, listen, I look forward. We're going to do a future show with your wife and daughter. I'm looking forward to getting that scheduled. And we'll also want to do a conversation at some point with you and Cranky. How's Cranky doing?
Cranky's, he's just doing awesome. He's counting the days down to when he gets out of school, because he stays, them two boys, they have a house on our farm out there. And during the summer, my wife she'll have chores for him, and she has home cooked meals, and we have a swimming pool. He loves hanging out right there on that hill. He doesn't care. He doesn't need to go to the movie. He doesn't need to go to this. He loves hanging out there in the country. I think all of them do. And so he's kind of counting the days. he's had a pretty epic turkey season this year. Because back in the day, he said, Pop, turkey hunting comes hard to me. His older brother and his cousin would kill one, but he killed 3 this year, and he got his Rio, and so he's had an epic turkey season, and now it's all about the summer. We were talking yesterday. We were grabbing trail cameras in the woods, and he had left 4 or 5 traps out. We were pulling his coon traps. And all he could talk about was food plots, and we're going to move this, and we need to improve that. So that's been a blessing hanging around with him.
That quote that I read from Olympia Dukakis at the beginning, and in it says, people might try to dissuade you from your passion. No one's going to be able to dissuade Cranky from his passion, will they?
No, he's so focused. And I told you before, he's got an old soul. He'll say stuff sometimes that'll just go, wow. And his mannerisms, and he's so calm, and his ability to reason and think and have a conversation like an adult is crazy. And I know you have grandkids, and like you said, they're all special, and they have their own things that they do phenomenal. But Cranky's like hanging with a 30-year-old, 11-year-old, if you know what I mean. So yeah, he's very passionate about it. He gets it. He's like, well, when will we put the cameras back out so we'll know what kind of deer we got? He's always thinking ahead, and it's a blessing.
I know he is. That conversation you had with him on the Fistful of Dirt. First of all, if people have not signed up to listen to Cuz's Fistful of Dirt, I really encourage you to go take a look at it. It's a absolutely incredible podcast. And I want to bring your attention to the podcast he had a few podcasts ago with Cranky. Go listen to it, and you will be amazed. Again, he said this already, but Cranky has an old soul. But the interactions between Cuz and Cranky, and the way that Cranky describes situations and experiences, will inspire you, and you will enjoy it. Not only is it inspiring, but it's fun to listen to. And you had fun doing it, didn't you, Cuz?
Oh, absolutely. It was by accident. He had something was going on at the school, and he was up in my office, and we were sitting there and just talking. I said, and I told Lauren, I said, hook the gear up and let me set him down. Let's finish this conversation on the air. And he didn't think nothing about it. He just went over and sat in that chair, and we talked for, an hour. And that's why he's been so good on video. He little kids, I used to shoot kids all the time with cameras, and they would stiffen up and just, not. And I had a deal where I would go practice the interviews. I'd say, hey, let's go down here, and I'm going to tell you what we're going to do at 3 o'clock. And they would talk if they didn't know the camera was running. That was my little trick. Cranky could care less. Not only will he talk and not change, he'll grab the camera and address it himself, because he doesn't care. He understands all that. And people love kids and dogs and food. You can't go wrong in those 3 areas. And we talk about food a lot, but he's that little glimmer of good news. And if you stay on social media and scroll and hear all the GoFundMe's and I'm having this issue and that, man, a little ray of light sometimes is very popular.
What it is, Cuz, and you live in this world, this describes you, what I'm about to say, but people are drawn to authenticity. Yeah. They want you to be who you are. If you're not who you are, they will figure it out quickly and turn you off. They do not like people who fake it. They want to see who you are. So you are really in touch with yourself. You're a great mentor for Cranky. He was already a human sponge, whatever made that, his DNA, his parents, whatever. And then he's able to sort of glom onto you, this great mentor, and it's brought out of him this incredible authenticity that is, again, ahead of his years. That is for sure.
Yeah, he's an interesting kid. I was telling you, when he was, I think 5, he was diagnosed with dyslexia. And of course, when I heard that, his mom caught it, and their teacher and all that, and it was like, wow, you think of that when you're not knowing what it is as a disability. And once they explained everything, and they enrolled him in a class at Mississippi State, I think he was 5, and he goes there. He does 2 hours a week. As a matter of fact, this coming Wednesday, he graduates. He's like the first kid to run all the way through the whole course. And the teachers love him so much. They're having a graduation party for him Wednesday. But he and I found this to be true. I've kind of dug into that and read a lot about it. And those people are, Elon Musk. You can just go down the list, and the way they think of things and their imagination is so vivid. It makes perfect sense to me. Now, he makes straight A's, but they've taught him how to learn, and which is just seeing things different, sevens and L's and all that. But it's been fascinating to go through that with him, because he is, like I say, he's a little old man, but his imagination and his, like the other day, I was building something. I was building a ladder to go out to the floating dock. We put a new fish feeder out there. And I had it sitting on the tailgate where these cables come through, and Cranky rode by on his bike and skidded and said, "Pop, you got to move that. You ain't going to be able to get it off the tailgate," because the 2x4s were going through the cables. And he spotted it in like a tenth of a second. And he's just different,
Yeah.
but in a good way.
Well, listen, as I mentioned to you before the show started, I also have dyslexia, and I didn't have the benefit of getting diagnosed at an early age, but I did learn how to learn and went on to have a good career. But people like Cranky can be an inspiration for other young people who may be struggling with that. And Owen can be good from him sharing that experience. But anyway, we're out of time for the day. Cuz, it's been great to see you. I look forward to having your daughter and wife on with us, and then a future show with Cranky, so people who have not seen the podcast can really enjoy what you and I are talking about. But have a great day, my friend.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna issue an invite to you to be one of my next guests on the podcast. So if you'll text me a good number to reach you, the way I do it, I send questions ahead of time, and you and I can have a great conversation on inspiration.
Sounds good, man. I look forward to it. This has been Cuz Strickland from Mossy. We'll have a great day. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I really enjoyed that conversation with Cuz Strickland. What a great Mississippian he is. Once again, an outdoor ambassador to the rest of the world, really, through Mossy Oak and his many connections outside of Mississippi. He's an ambassador for the state of Mississippi. When you're the capital of outdoors, as we are in America, it's great to have people like Ronnie and Toxie Hayes and his sons, and Will Primos and Lake Pickle and Jordan Blissett and a long line of others who are out there outside the state of Mississippi representing us all so very well. And listen, that quote from Olympia Dukakis: "Follow your heart, your instincts. People might try to dissuade you from your passion, but no one can live your life but you." When you're thinking about the outdoors and the people who are around you, never forget that our love of the outdoors, if they certainly can't dissuade us, but we might be able to persuade them to fall in love with the outdoors. That's what this show is all about when it comes down to it. Now let's shift gears and move over to my friend Scott Baker. He's been on the show before. He's a wildlife biologist with the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. He's been there, I guess, now over 25 years. And for most of the time he's been there, he's been doing dove field preparation on both public and private lands. I always enjoy visiting with Scott. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank y'all for having me today.
Scott, isn't it amazing how time is flying? That here we are, it's May the 1st. That's incredible to think about, isn't it?
It is. When your career revolves around hunting, and you clock it down, or by hunting seasons, it just speeds by.
Yeah, one of the things that Cuz and I were talking about is that the last few years, spring has been weird. It's gone from cold to like somebody's flipping a switch and suddenly it's 80 degrees everywhere. But this has been more traditional type of spring. Cool mornings, a little bit warmer afternoons, a little bit more rain than normal. But this is kind of the way it is. It's been kind of nice having a spring, hasn't it?
It has, most definitely.
So, okay, so look, you've been doing dove field preparation for most of your career. You've had the opportunity through your 25 years to see some amazingly successful dove hunts, haven't you?
I have, sure have.
So when you think about a great dove hunt, what we'll come back to preparation and stuff like that, but when you think about a great dove hunt, what's that look like to you?
it's I guess multiple views. If you measure the success by the number of birds, that can be one way, but then there's the other measure of success of just gathering with family and friends. You hope to shoot a few birds, but even if you don't, you have a great time socializing with each other, catching up. It's almost a family reunion, of sorts, and listening to a football game on the radio, and a lot of times you're going to have a grill cooking, so it's great, just a great atmosphere. And if you kill some birds, that's just a bonus.
I love the way you talk about it, because again, you've spent a career managing that particular resource and helping people understand how to do it right. So you got at least a good opportunity to shoot some birds. But even though that's where you spend most of your time, it's interesting. You really zeroed in on the one big reason so many of us are involved in the outdoors, the opportunity to be able to spend time with family and friends, and what it's all about. And right, you're getting into that like football season. You kind of, this notion of, maybe you're watching listening to a football game on the radio, or maybe after the hunt you're watching on TV. That kind of brings it all into very serious clarity about what that's all about, doesn't it?
It does. It's the kickoff of fall, both hunting and football. So it's a great time of the year.
And it's interesting. It's not just the hunt itself, but just like with deer hunting, I often say some of the funnest part of deer hunting for me is creating new food plots during the off season. It's the conversations I have with my seed guy, my fertilizer guy, or my farmer, or getting the tractors ready to go, and spraying the fields, and all the things you do prior to the hunt. Once you get to the hunt, though, by the time the hunting actually starts, you've already enjoyed some great camaraderie. And dove season is the same way, isn't it?
It is, and I think you touched on a very important point. Is the dove field preparation starts now, and you work on it throughout the course of the summer, but it's anticipation that builds in you. You have that a vision, imagination of doves flying in, and, everything that comes along with the hunt itself. And so you're anticipating it all summer long. And the dove hunt itself is all, it is fun, but you've really enjoyed the whole process from May till September or Labor Day.
Yeah, we did a dove field on one of our farms, not last year, but maybe the year before last. We had moderate success, but we had a good time, man. I've never laughed so hard in my life. It's a little bit like duck hunting in regard to, in between all the shooting, you can rag each other and have a lot of fun to, just being together. And that's what it was like for us. We made some great memories, but you hear that all the time, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Me, dove hunting is a social sport. Duck hunting is a social sport. Squirrel hunting with a dog is a social sport. There's a lot of them that we participate in. And a lot of times we don't think about it being that way, but it's more than just the hunt itself. It's those you surround yourself with on the hunt, and the time of field with those that you really enjoy, and the hunt just brings you together.
It really does. So if you're thinking about sort of the perfect scenario of what makes really a great dove field, how would you describe that?
We look for a field, and I recommend the private landowners look for a field that has, of course, an opening, an area that you can plant, but also food. That's going to be your field you're planting. Water, if you've got some type of water source close by, maybe a pond, a gravel road, because doves like grit, and if you have one of those close by, is great. Excuse, pardon me. Or a power line. All those are attractant to doves, and if you add food, that's just a bonus. It keeps them there year round, or at least during the growing season anyway. So. The power line, the gravel road is great, water, and then the food, the field itself that you're going to be preparing.
Yeah, it's interesting because for those of us, and this would go for all the listeners and those who may be watching the show who dove hunt, the way you just described that, if they think about the time they had some of their best hunts, it had all those elements. I can think one of them in Greenwood, right outside of Greenwood, and I can see the dirt road, and along the dirt road is a power line, and then off to the right is usually farm field that's been planted for dove, and then there's a tree line behind that, and Man, you're talking about magic. I mean, a magic number of doves coming from every direction, and I'm sure people can relate to that. But you mentioned, that dove field preparation is not something you just say, okay, a few weeks before the season starts, I'm going to go out and throw some wheat on the ground. It's not like that. So when you think about dove field preparation, you mentioned that starts actually now. Talk about the best sort of calendar of events that should take place around the preparation of your fields.
Sure will, Ricky. And, we recommend people to plant a buffet of foods out there for doves. A lot of times when people are thinking doves, a sunflower field comes to mind, and there's nothing wrong with a sunflower field. We've had some great hunts, and people have experienced some great hunts over sunflower fields. But you can also provide a diversity of food and habitat out there for doves. And when I say habitat, I'm thinking of different food types, but also disc lane. So if you could take a field and imagine disc strips across it, if you have a 5-foot or 10-foot disc, whatever, and you may have a row of just disc ground. That's all you do all summer long is keep that disc ground disc clean. Right to the left of it may be a strip of brown top millet. And then to the left of that strip of brown top millet could be sunflowers. And then it could be another strip of disc dirt again, and you alternate that across the field. And you may not do, if you don't want to do brown top millet, it could just be a disc strip of bare dirt, sunflowers, disc strip, sunflowers, disc strip, but be alternated across the field. The disc ground, doves like to come through to get grit, but also to maybe take a excuse me. Pardon me.
No problem at all. Go ahead. Yeah.
The brown top millet, but I was talking about the bare dirt. It has value in itself, even without planting anything on it. The brown top millet is another food source, along with the sunflowers. And if you have a weather event, environmental event, that a dry period that's not favorable for the sunflowers, you still got the brown top growing out there. You don't have all your eggs in one basket. And doves like a diversity of food as well. So, but nothing wrong with going 100% sunflowers if you want to, and you need to be planting those now. But they're about a 120-day crop, and so you want to time the maturity of your crop with the opening day of dove season, or when you want to be hunting out there. And on sunflowers, if a person likes to hunt the multiple seasons, then you could stagger the planting dates out, so you don't all mature at one time and you got fresh food throughout the hunting season.
We're talking to Scott Baker, who is with the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and he spent the majority of his over 25 years with the department helping with dove field preparation in both public and private land. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. We'll see you after this break.
Mississippi, where a mockingbird sings out on his limb, whistling that sweet soul for him. I said 3 Mississippi to this land called home. I'll breathe Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Just carry on, I'll carry on, Mississippi.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors for the final segment of today's show. I have Scott Baker, who is a wildlife biologist for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, where he's been for more than 25 years. Focused on most of that time dove field preparation for public and private lands. What's interesting about what we were talking about when you're talking about strip of dirt, then maybe some brown top millet, and maybe some sunflowers, and then some more strip of dirt, and the role that grit plays in the dove's life. I rarely, when I actually go hunt, I rarely see people take that same kind of approach. You're really preaching that though, aren't you?
I am. We've seen some very successful fields out there. It's going to lessen your cost of dove field preparation, and it's just going to provide a diversity and a buffet of food out there. When we talked about brown top millet, it's got a 60 to 90 day growing season, so you can shorten your plant it closer to opening day. It may be Memorial Day weekend or even after, and then a lot of opportunities been managing brown top between baling it for hay. If you grow cattle, you can get additional income from, feeding or selling the hay. You can burn. And, one good thing about dove field preparation when it comes to management prior to opening day, just about anything is on the table. You can manipulate the crop in so many ways: bush hogging, burning. They call it hogging when you turn livestock in, different things. That's the only thing you can't do is you couldn't harvest a seed and then put that seed back on the field. That would constitute baiting. But if you wanted to bush hog it, burn it, cut it for silage, it's just a lot of opportunities to manage that field for dove hunting.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been to a couple of dove hunts where the owner was super aware of what constituted an illegal field. And sometimes to do a legal field, it may actually look illegal. So how do you talk a little bit about the fine lines that exist between legal and illegal fields?
Sure. And I tell people, when you touched on it earlier, if you're just starting a couple of weeks prior to opening day preparing a dove field, that's when more than likely that's when baiting cases occur a lot of times. Not always, but when you're trying to prepare a dove field just before Labor Day, and it includes something coming out of a bag, grain coming out of a bag, that's an opportunity for baiting to occur. But if you plant a dove field, you can manipulate it in a lot of different ways. But when you start pouring grain out of a bag, the month prior to, and you can't even add to these fields we're talking about that I've seen a lot of baiting cases made. Somebody could have a great sunflower field, but they think they want to make it a little bit better. They want to edge on their neighbor, and they do something like pouring some additional grain out of a bag that wasn't grown out there, and that can be a baited dove field like that. So, and we ought to come back around and talk about, field preparation probably maybe in the month of August, but, more on that. But plant a dove field now in the course of the summer, and you've got a lot of options.
I bet you have walked during your career, you have walked up with law enforcement officers and looked at a field that looked like the preparation was perfect, but you saw that little supplement in there, and it probably sticks out like a sore thumb, doesn't it?
It does. And I've seen portions of a field baited and the other ones not. And when you start digging into why did this little, area get baited? Well, the hunter that was going to be hunting that spot wanted his spot to be a little bit better than the rest of the field, and that makes it a baited field for everybody out there. So it's generally somebody wanting to make it a little bit better, whether it be the whole field or a little corner of the field.
In cases like that, and I've heard this, I've actually had friends that were caught in that scenario that you just mentioned, where it was really important to them to go to a dove field that was legal, and everything about it looked legal. And they were guaranteed that it was legal. But the problem is someone, without telling somebody else, did what you just talked about. But that's not a defense, is it?
No, it's not. When the hunter goes to the field of somebody else's, there's a few questions he needs to ask. One is, did he know it was baited? Did he look? And did he actually look around and see if something was out of place? And did he ask the landowner, whoever prepared the field, how the field was prepared? The responsibility is on the hunter to do that.
That's kind of scary. And a lot of people have been caught in that situation. By the way, how aggressive is the law enforcement side during the dove season?
Very aggressive. It's common for state and federal to have airplanes in the air looking for fields, and then they may see it from the air, and then they'll also go back to the ground, and look at it. And when the officers are out on opening day, weekend, whatever, it's easy to pick fields up that you did not know were there because there's gunshots going off, and generally a lot of them. So that's a telltale sign that there's dove hunting going over there, and can ride over and check the field. So it's hard to get by, even though some do. It eventually will make its way out.
Well, listen, we'll have you back in a month or two before the season starts, and we'll talk about dove hunter safety and lots of things like that. But dove hunting is certainly a great way to get the season kicked off for so many hunters. As you said, the ultimate social hunt up there with duck hunting. But it's been a pleasure, Scott, to visit with you, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to being back.
You bet. This has been Scott Baker from the Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Department, and he's the dove field preparation guy. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Scott. Anyway, it's been a pleasure to spend time with you, Scott. I enjoyed my conversation with Cuz Strickland as well. Have a great week and stay safe when you're in the outdoors. Always put safety first. We'll see you next Monday.